Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is defending Bombardier's bailout money. He says investing in Bombardier is a way of ensuring good long-term jobs across the country. But after the company laid off over 14,000 people, accepted $372 million from the feds, and got Quebec to agree to a $1 billion investment, we find out senior executives gave themselves a raise totaling $32.6 million. Bombardier issued a statement yesterday explaining it this way. Bombardier's ability to compete and win in a very competitive global market depends on our ability to attract and retain a world-class leadership team. Even so, one of that team, the Bombardier's chairman, Pierre Beaudoin, says he won't take his portion of the raise, about $1.8 million. Is it fair that a company who went cap in hand to the government turns around and then gives its executives multi-million-dollar raises? Should the government do something about that? All questions for our Sunday Scrum panelists. Joining me today from Ottawa, freelance columnist Susan Riley. Good morning, Susan. John Ibbotson of the Globe and Mail. Good morning, John.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. And Denise Cialet, managing partner of SEM Group. Hi, Denise. Welcome back.
Morning, Carol.
John, lots of people in this country outraged with the salary increases. What say you?
I'm as outraged as everybody else, except for this. Do we want to have an aviation industry in Canada? That's the question. Aviation, automobiles are another example of this, is an industry in which different governments compete with each other to win market share by subsidizing the corporations within their market. So Canadian subsidizes Bombardier. The Americans, in one way or another, subsidize their major manufacturers. Embraer in Brazil is subsidized. And as a result of this, you have, on the one hand, free play of market forces. Companies are buying or not buying jets from this country or that country or this company or that country. On the other hand, everything is being fed, propped up with these government supports. And it's really governments competing with other governments to see who can subsidize the most and win the most contracts. And then in the midst of all of that, sure, along comes a big pay raise for the bosses involved, and everyone is angry and upset. What we really should be angry and upset about is the fact that the aviation industry across the world is so heavily subsidized by governments, because it shouldn't be.
Okay, Susan, what do you think?
I think you can be angry and upset at both things at the same time. You know, these people are, the senior executives at Bombardier are justifying their raises based on their brilliant performance. Well, they have not had a brilliant performance. In fact, there have been deep questions about the governance of the company before both the Quebec government pitched in $1 billion, I'm sorry, and before the federal government gave its loan. The federal government was pretending to be tough with Bombardier. Certainly the negotiations stretched over a very long time. During that time, Bombardier scored 2 contracts for the C-Series jets, the troubled jet program that they've been asking for the bailouts for. Air Canada's buying some, Delta's buying some. One senior executive at Bombardier said, you know, we might not even need the federal cash. The federal government went ahead and gave them the cash. Justin Trudeau justified it the other day by saying, well, you know, this is the free market. No, it's not. This is an unconscionable sort of bonus for people who haven't earned it. While the federal government just stands by and washes its hands, at least one of the Quebec ministers, the economy minister, had the intelligence to say, wait, this does not look good, Bombardier.
Denise, what do you think? Do you think that, what do you think of the fact that, first of all, Bombardier took the money and then gave its senior management 32-point-something million in raises?
Compensation and remuneration tied to performance aside, right? So we expect that in order to be competitive in a global market, that, you know, we pay top executives great, important money so that they don't go off other places. But here's the thing. From the perspective of the average Canadian, this makes absolutely no sense. When you have $32.56 million, whatever the figure is, being given to executives who have not only released close to 15,000 jobs, but are also, it doesn't make sense. It's like me asking my neighbor for a loan of, let's say, $10,000, and I agree to employ, the next door neighbor's kid, and then the next morning I roll into my driveway with a Range Rover. And so for Canadians billions. It just does not make sense. And where's the stopgap here? Who is it that's going to say, hang on a second, Bombardier, take a look again at this? So in terms of the chairman saying that he'll not take the $1.8 million, those are numbers that, quite frankly, are unfathomable, right? Unfathomable.
Sure, but just very quickly, what would your alternative be? I mean, what is this panel suggesting we should do? We should rescind the loans to Bombardier. We should shut down the aviation industry. Once you get into these seamy and unseemly beds of government subsidies of private corporations, you're going to have this. But I don't know what the alternative is. The alternative is to say, never mind, let's get out of airplanes. Let's just grow wheat. Wheat is easy.
Well, you know what the alternative is, John? It's a government that acts in these affairs with the interests of the taxpayer at heart, with the interests of the broader population at heart. These companies, Bombardier is not the first, it won't be the last, always use their large workforce as kind of hostages. And they say, look, if you don't give us this money, Montreal's going to lose 42,000 jobs or something or the other. The role of a vigilant government is to say, prove it. Is that really true? Okay, we will give you the money. Prove to us that you really need it. And there should have been a pre-agreement, an acceptance that part of this money was not going to go to the senior executives who got Bombardier into this mess in the first place.
Let me just jump in there, because David Baskin is president of the Nay Street investment management firm. He said if he was the person negotiating that agreement on behalf of the government, he would have said, please don't embarrass us by raising your pay by 50% after us giving you all this money. Can governments do that? Should governments do that? Put conditions on the aid money. Denise.
Absolutely. And you know, the key thing here is very specifically, John, in terms of the answer needs to be to the average Canadian who's looking at their taxpayer dollars and saying, hang on a second, this does not quite make sense. Now, again, we understand that it's a loan package, but the evidence from what Bombardier has done in terms of this is an investment in creating more jobs, when the fact of the matter is it's done the exact opposite, or at least the track record, in terms of losing those 14,000 plus jobs. Now, for the role of government, of course, we want to ensure that our major manufacturers, and in fact across all industries, that they're solvent, they're solid. But Bombardier has not been one of those companies traditionally that has required this government bailout, and in fact had even suggested that they didn't necessarily need this. So that's problematic, not only for me, but I think for a lot of folks who are looking at this deal with raised eyebrows.
Oh boy, we're going to have to be very tough then on the executives of the Ford Motor Company, because we've given them a bunch of government subsidies in order to build a new plant in Ontario. So we're going to have to monitor the compensation over at Ford. Well, and by the way, Quebec government's giving money to help the newspaper industry in Quebec. So we better take a good hard look at the compensation for those post-media executives who took all that retention bonuses and then a year later are leaving afterwards. My point is,
I agree, John.
This is
agree.
messy.
Why don't we?
It is messy and unpleasant and difficult and embarrassing when governments get into the business of handing out loans to corporations. But I don't know what the alternative is. It's a cowardly
double standard. Justin Trudeau was in Hamburg, a couple of months ago, lecturing CEOs from Europe about how income inequality is getting to be a real problem. It leads to sort of Trumpian responses, leads to an ugly kind of populism. Treat your workers well. You know, don't treat somebody who's going on maternity leave like scum. Watch executive compensation. Like he talks this great line in Europe, and he turns around here and he falls like a cheap suit. I think he's covered. I think it's been a very inglorious moment for him and his government.
A lot of people paying attention to this on Twitter. Let me just put some of this to you. We'll get your reaction, so we'll get the looks on your faces as well. Why not monitor bonuses when businesses take government money? The reason for these salary raises is that they were able to get money from the taxpayers. Next comes bonus for losing that money. Bombardier retaining talent. For what? Performance? And Canada borrowed billions for years. Canada has allowed billions in benefits to leave the country. Foreign interests, not our interest. And then finally, absolutely doesn't make sense. Government should place cause for these selfish executives not to receive millions of dollars. And one more, corporate welfare does nothing but funnel taxpayer money into the hands of wealthy elites. And presumably, if these CEOs had done a good job, they wouldn't need a government subsidy. That's what we're hearing, by and large, across the Twitter sphere on this topic right now. Who wants to react first?
They should be on the panel.
I'll just say this.
John.
I'll just say this very, very quickly. I don't like any of it. Maybe what we should do is we should just go back to the free play of market forces. We should eliminate all government subsidies for industries of all kinds everywhere. That includes agriculture, by the way, including supply management. You just lower the corporate tax rate to 5%, and you let the free play of market forces decide who wins and who loses. And I personally would love it, except that I have some conscience, and the tens and perhaps hundreds of thousands of people who would lose their jobs during that disruption is some cause for concern, don't you think?
Well, John, you're describing an extreme case, and this is exactly what corporate Canada does. If we do this little thing, which makes sense, which would be just, the sky is going to fall. What you're also doing is expressing the opinion of the only potential political winner out of this whole thing, which is Maxime Bernier, who has for a long time opposed any kind of corporate welfare, and quite bravely for a Quebec MP was opposed to the bailout to Bombardier as well. By the way, speaking of Conservative leadership candidates, where's Kelly Leitch? She's supposed to be against elites. Why isn't she weighing in on this payoff?
All right. Well, we'll certainly be talking about Conservative candidates in just a few minutes. And that was a very nice segue to our next topic, which is about trade and what's coming down the pike. And another thing that Maxime Bernier is against, which is subsidies, certain subsidies. So we'll take a look at that. But the American microscope is on Canada to see where we've abused our relationship with the U.S. But our trade minister, Chrystia Freeland, says Trump has it wrong. We're on a list. We'll talk about that coming up on the Sunday Scrum.